Good morning or afternoon, everyone. My name is Jeremy Walsh, and I am the Director of Support, Training, and Documentation for BNI Connect. I'd like to welcome everybody to the webinar today. Today's webinar is on chapter goals for leadership teams. And what we're going to be talking about today is that there is a function in BNI Connect that allows you to go through, input all of your goals for your chapter for the upcoming 6-month term or for the year or really for any time frame that you would like to. And then BNI Connect will track those goals based on your POMS report going forward for the rest of the time that you've entered goals for. This serves as a huge benefit for chapter leadership teams because it helps to keep you organized and focused throughout the year. Rather than just showing up to the meeting, you can actually plan your meetings ahead of time. So before we get started on today's content, just a couple of quick housekeeping tips. The first of which is that this is a live webinar. If you have any questions at all as we're going through the material today, please do feel free to ask. Best way to ask is to type your question into the questions panel. I will see that pop up on my screen, and I'd be happy to answer those questions as we're going through. We're scheduled for about 30 minutes worth of content. That being said, if you have questions, by all means, I will be happy to stay on this webinar until every single question has been answered. This webinar is being recorded. All of our webinars are recorded. We make them available as quickly as possible in a couple of different places. They are actually hosted on our support site. So if you click on this question mark here in the upper right-hand corner, so log into BNI Connect, click on the help question mark. That will take you over to the support site. You will see our list of upcoming webinars for the current month. And if you scroll down to chapter training and documentation, you'll see recorded webinars. You'll see them all chronologically listed. And we have, for example, February. All of the webinars we've done so far in February are listed here. And the one for today will be there, hopefully, either by the end of the day or tomorrow. You can also find them all on YouTube. So youtube.com/BNI Connect Global. This has all of our recorded content. So check us out and subscribe to us up on YouTube. It has, in addition to the webinars, some educational moments, so some short 3 to 5 minute videos that explain just certain topics. You can use them at your chapter meetings or forward them to members to learn more about BNI Connect. All right, so let's talk about goals in BNI Connect and goals for your chapter. The place that we're going to be managing the goals, for those of you that have been on previous webinars, the way that I think about things in BNI Connect is we have all of our main daily activities on this home page, so our progress and our status and the ability to submit slips. In order to get to some of the other tools, you do have to start to enter some of the menus here along the top. Network is all the social media things. Operations is input, and reports is output. Since what we're going to be doing today is inputting and working with goals, we're going to go to operations. So click on operations and then chapter. And here we have all the different things that we can do as far as chapter operations. We're going to go down to the one that says Manage Goals, and here you'll see 2 different options. We have Enter Chapter Goals and View Chapter Goals. Enter Chapter Goals will allow us to go into basically this giant goals spreadsheet to be able to update it, to make changes. You can always go back and redo it if you need to. So that's the Enter, and the View Chapter Goals is after we've entered them, we can start to see the status of those goals. One thing to keep in mind with the goals is that by default, only the leadership team of the chapter, the president, the vice president, and the secretary-treasurer will have access to enter chapter goals. Now, depending on the permissions in your particular region, most chapter members may also have access just to view the chapter goals. So this can actually be a thing that you can share with your chapter in order to have them be participatory in your chapter's progress. So let's go and take a look at our entering chapter goals. The first thing you're going to need to do when you're working with chapter goals is we're going to establish when we are going to work with the goals from. By default, what's going to happen is you can work on goals for any 6-month period of time. You can start with this month. That's usually the easiest thing to do. If you've already gotten through this 6-month period, you can move on to the next 6-month period. It doesn't have to be April or October. You can choose any month that you'd like to. So I'm going to go ahead and click this month, and I'm going to start it as of February 2015. You then need to define a long-term vision for your chapter. Now, the long-term vision is kind of where do you want to get to as a chapter. You don't necessarily need to put numbers in here, although if you would like to, you can. For example, up here in our Shiver region, the Burr chapter, the chapter that we're working with, our long-term vision for the chapter is to grow the chapter to be the largest chapter of the entire continent. In addition, we wish to be the #1 in thank you for closed business and referrals within a 200-mile radius. The mission statement, on the other hand, is what values, how are you going to get there? How are you going to motivate your chapter to be what you want to be in your long-term vision? And our mission statement here is that we want to help members increase their business through structured, positive, and professional word of mouth that enables them to develop long-term, meaningful relationships with quality business professionals and create positive community goodwill. Long-term vision is where do we want to get to, and the mission statement is how we want to get there. Now, once you've chosen a date and once you have your vision and mission statement filled out, which you only have to do once, click Go. And this will essentially bring up your spreadsheet that we're going to be filling out in order to track our goals. You'll see here that this spreadsheet is broken into different, what we call chapter success drivers. These are the things that we are measuring in our chapters in order to be successful. We have attendance percentage, total number of one-to-ones, CEUs or chapter education units, visitors, new memberships, total number of members in the chapter, number of referrals, and thank you for closed business. You'll also see along the top, it says, how do we want to track our goals, either as an entire chapter number for the whole chapter or per member. So this really has to do with the calculation, whether or not it's going to report back to you in a per member number on a monthly basis or for the whole chapter. I can tell you that most people that use this tool use this as a whole chapter number because it tends to be a little bit easier to follow. So looking at the goals themselves, so each of the success drivers, you'll see that it's broken into 3 parts. The goal, the number that you're trying to attain, the measurable number, mechanism 1, and mechanism 2. And you'll see that it's set up for each of these. Establishing goals is as easy as filling out this spreadsheet. It's going to be up to you. My recommendation is to be sitting down, maybe with your leadership team at a leadership team meeting, so the president, vice president, secretary, treasurer, and you all do this together over BNI Connect. Now, when establishing goals, I usually find that it's best to keep the end in mind and to work your way backwards. So you can tell that I've played with this on previous webinars. What I'm going to do is I'm going to, let me just remove this stuff so we can start fresh. And the first thing I'm going to look at right here is attendance percentage. And attendance percentage is pretty straightforward of a category. You should know that what we want to do is figure out where we want to end up. So by starting in this month and ending in August, what is a realistic goal that you would like to get to? I would say that up here in Antarctica, our attendance numbers have been pretty weak. So I'm going to say that by August, we're going to get, let's say, 95% attendance. I also know that right now, as of February, we are averaging somewhere in the 85%. The next thing to do is really to just break it down and figure out on a monthly basis how much do we need to increase each month in order to get there. So the difference between 85 and 95 is 10 or about 2 per month. So the rest of this should be fairly easy to fill in. So I can go from 85 to 87, 89, 91, 93. That's the easy way to do this. If you would like to get more complicated, you definitely can. There's other factors always that you have to take into consideration, such as holiday periods, getting 98 or 100% attendance during the month of December, for example, which is a heavy holiday month with New Year's and Christmas in many countries. That might be unattainable. So you can start to take those things into consideration as well. But from a more straightforward standpoint, again, I like to start to begin with where I want to get to, where we are now, and fill the gaps in between. You can always tweak it later. Now, what are mechanisms? Mechanisms are different tools that you can use at your chapter in order to support that goal. For example, if you're looking to increase your attendance percentage in your chapter, what things can you do at the chapter level to make that goal happen? For example, maybe if you're having a hard time with attendance, maybe the vice president or the membership committee isn't enforcing the absent policy properly. So one thing that you may need to do or may want to do is that in March, we want to make sure that the VP is sending out all of the control letters when people miss a meeting. So I can put a little reminder in here that in March, we want to make sure that we're doing VP control letters. And let's see, maybe another thing we can do to help support that goal is that we want to make sure that somebody is calling that person every time they miss a meeting, even if they have a substitute, just to say, hey, you know what, we missed you. Want to make sure you're coming back next week. Hope everything's okay. Something like that. So we're going to establish some member phone calls when they miss a meeting. Now, if you're looking for ideas on things that you can use to support these mechanisms, click this button up here at the top, Chapter Goal Guide. And here you'll see all of the chapter success drivers and different mechanisms in order to accomplish those. So we can see here under the header for attendance, we have, let's say, educational moments on why it's important to be there, or follow-up phone calls, or implementing the mentoring program. Maybe you can have a bring your sub day. You know what? I think that bring your sub day is a great idea. Maybe we're going to do that during member extravaganza, because that'll also help to support other goals like chapter growth. So member extravaganza is in April and May. So maybe one of the mechanisms in April is we are going to have the Bring Your Sub Day, which maybe will help with attendance. All right, so now looking at some of the other goals that we have here, things like, one of the things to keep in mind is you do not have to do this in order. You can skip around, and in some cases, it may actually make sense to skip around. For example, a lot of these goals will depend on how big your chapter is. So number of one-to-ones and CEUs, in order to know what your goal is for these particular things, you really want to know how big you want your chapter to be towards the end of this goal period. So I'm going to actually skip all the way down to this number of members in chapter thing, and let's see what we can come up with for some numbers for this. So I know right now that our chapter is about 25 members, let's say. So I can put our current status in here as 25 members. And you know what? In the next 6 months, I'd really like to, let's say, get to 35 members. We'd like to, or maybe I want to go a little smaller than that. Let's say 30 members. So I'd like to grow by 5 members in the next couple of months here. Well, we know that is probably about 1 per month. Let's work our way backwards here. So next month we're going to grow by 1 member each month for the next 6 months. And again, we can then start thinking of mechanisms. Now I know that in April and May we're going to be doing a Visitors Day, so we're going to have the Visitor Day process that we're going to be working through. And that's actually going to go through 2 different months, so I'm going to put that in there for both. Maybe next month, we also know that we're going to be doing a Bring Your Sub Day in April, so that's going to support this particular mechanism. So I'm going to put in a Bring Your Sub Day. And again, we can go to the chapter goal guide and start looking at some other ideas that we can use in order to fill out this particular goal. So we can effectively execute on visitors per month. So we can also look at things like visitors per month and get some ideas for there. Now, it's important to do this number of members because we know that in order to increase the number of members, we're also going to have to increase the number of visitors. So the next thing that we may want to work on after we're working on number of members in chapter is number of visitors and number of new memberships. So these are the next 2. Now, one of the things that we know is in order to increase the number of members, we are going to have to bring in some new memberships. So in order to increase by 1 per month, though, we may need to actually bring in more than 1 per month. The reason for that is that there are always going to be members that leave BNI for whatever reason. We have attrition in chapters. Now, generally speaking, most chapters experience an attrition rate of about 1 member per month. So in order to establish our goals, we're going to have at least 1 additional member per month just to maintain our current size. And if we know that we want to also grow by 1 member per month, that means that we are probably going to need to bring in, this month we need to bring in 1, next month we're going to bring in 2, 2, 2, 2, and 2 in order to be able to match that goal. And there are other, again, we can further make this much more advanced if we want to. For example, because we're going to be doing a membership extravaganza during the April and May months, we may actually see additional members in this particular month. So maybe we're going to end up with maybe 5 or 6 applications, which may take some of the pressure off of the upcoming months. Or maybe knowing this, we need to go back and revise our number of members of chapters and see an increase here of an additional amount. And again, we can put our mechanisms in here. The BNI game is another great one, having a Visitors Day. There's also another mechanism called Stack Days, where you just invite for a particular profession. So there's all sorts of techniques. For more information on that, please do have a one-to-one with your director consultant. Your director consultant is a wealth of knowledge and information that can definitely assist you with some of these types of additional ideas. Moving on, we also have visitors. So looking at the number of visitors, depending on your conversion rate, you may want to take your conversion rate for your chapter into consideration. But think about how many members that visit actually apply. In general, you're going to get 1 to 2 applications for every 10 visitors. So that being said, let's say that it's a 10 to 1. We're going to need to make sure we bring in at least 10 to 10 visitors for every 1 application. So I'm going to make sure we bring in 20 visitors in order to get those 2 applications. And again, we can fill out the mechanisms, and for more mechanisms ideas, go to your chapter goal guides. Now, total number of one-to-ones, CEUs, and referrals to me all are very similar because in my opinion, our goal for our chapter that we're working with here is we want to make sure that we have at least 1 of each of these per member per week. So our goal is that we bring in 1 CEU, we do 1 CEU, we bring in 1 referral per week, and we also have at least 1-to-1 per week. So that is our goal as a chapter, to do 1 of everything. So in that case, what we have here is if we have on average 4 weeks per month and we have this number of members, we should be able to multiply this by 4 and get our results. So we would have 100 and then 104 and then 108, 112, 116, and finally 120. And to me, that's a great goal to have, is to make sure that every member is doing at least 1 of each of those per week. So I'm just going to go and take these numbers and put these into CEUs, for example, 104, 108, 112, 116, and 120. Same thing for number of one-to-ones. And again, we want to go through and put our mechanisms in as well. Every once in a while, you may also want to save this so that you don't lose your changes. One thing to keep in mind is that BNI Connect does have a 30-minute timeout. So that means if you walk away from your computer for 30 minutes, it will log you out of your session, and you will be forced to start a new session. If you have not saved it, you will lose your progress here. So do try to go in and save every once in a while, just like you would with a Word document or anything else that you're working on. And the final thing is our thank you for closed business. For this one, we've decided we want to be about $1 million a year chapter. So in order to do that, we need to submit $100,000 per month in thank you for closed business. So I've done that through putting in $100,000 across the board. And again, we can do some mechanisms, some educational moments, maybe having some accountability for people closing referrals as well. Again, once you're done, click Save and click OK. And after these are all filled out, you can always go back to the Operations menu, Operations chapter. Go back to Manage Goals. And now you can click on View Chapter Goals. And it will ask you again for a date range. By default, it's going to give you the current 6-month BNI period that you're in, which right now is 10/2014, October 2014 through April 2015. And you can see how you're doing. For example, we were shooting for 85% in January, and we hit 96%. This also lets you map out your activities throughout this period, so you can see what you should be doing and where you're going with all of this. This is a great document also to export or to print out if you'd like to share this information with your chapter. One thing I also found is that some people really like to work in a real spreadsheet, and then, or even on paper for that matter, and then come back and just do the data entry into BNI Connect. One thing you can do is, if you'd like to work with this in Excel, I would click on View Chapter Goals, and if you want this to be a blank sheet, either go back in time or go far into the future in time, you can click on View and you'll notice that everything is set to zeros. Then you can export this. And all you really need to do is to change these dates up at the top, and you can use this as a template for filling out your goals offline if you'd like to do this again with pen and paper sitting at a leadership team meeting. Now, just to give you some live results of what this looks like, I'm going to take a look in the United States here. I know there is a particular region where this tool is used in every single chapter within those regions. So I'm just going to randomly pick a chapter here, and we can look at this chapter's goals and how they're doing. So we can see this particular chapter. Their long-term vision is that they will increase its membership to 46 over the next term and focus on the core success drivers and foster a strong educational program. One key success driver will be bringing in qualified visitors and a strong visitor to new member conversion ratio. They're going to do this by ensuring that every BNI member meets their individual goals. They'll have an opportunity to become E-squared, which is a learning program that they have down there, and increasing additional educational components. We see that they've put in 100% for their attendance, and we can see how they're doing, because what happens is that this program will read the POMS reports and insert the results in there for you. So we can see that some months they're reaching it, some months they might be falling behind. But again, this is a great accountability tool. You can see what they've planned out for their chapter meetings and how they're going to work to maintain and to reach their chapter goals. And that is the Chapter Goals Program overview here in BNI Connect. We are getting close to the bottom of the hour. What I'd like to do is to open this up for questions. If anybody has any questions, please submit them now. Elizabeth asks, is there a support PDF available? Yes, as a matter of fact, if you click on Manage Goals, and you see these little question marks in front of each of these options. If you click that question mark, for example, on entering chapter goals, that will take you directly to the help document for how to get into, how to update, how to work with these chapter goals, the success drivers, how to save things. And then if you go back and click on the little question mark in front of the viewing the goals, it's a help document on how the report works as well. So does that help, Elizabeth? All right. Do we have any additional questions? Elizabeth, if you need an actual PDF file in order to maybe distribute it to your chapters or things like that, do let me know, and I can turn this particular help document into a PDF file that you can email out to people if you need to. For example, if you're going to be sharing it with your leadership teams or something like that, or if you're a director consultant with your region. We generally don't have a lot of these help documents available as PDFs because the functionality changes. We'd rather have people looking at the online content that we can change without having to redistribute materials constantly. But again, if you have a special need, just let me know, and I'm happy to put that together for you. All right. Does anybody else have any questions at all on the chapter goals? Questions, comments, concerns? While you're thinking of anything else, let me just very quickly remind you that this is being recorded. It will be made available again on the support site. Click on the question mark in the upper right-hand corner. And it will be located in the chapter training and documentation under the recorded webinars. There is also help documentation for every other piece of the system located here. For example, there's one on how to email a visitor invitation, This one even includes a short video that you can watch as well as step-by-step guides. All of our videos are also hosted on YouTube /BNI Connect Global, and this one will be listed up there shortly. And finally, I would love it if you give us a like on Facebook, facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. We do webinar announcements, tips and tricks and reminders and all sorts of stuff up here on our Facebook channel as well. So please give us a like up there. Let's see. Bobby says, this is great. There's so many resources. Thank you so much. You are very welcome, Bobby. Ken says, how do I get to that? You showed us at the beginning. To get to which one, Ken, the help site or YouTube? YouTube, you can either just go directly to YouTube. So the question mark. So just when you're logged into BNI Connect, just click on the question mark in the upper right-hand corner. Unfortunately, when I do it, because I'm logged in as an admin user, it takes me to my support desk. Okay, so if you can't log into BNI Connect, just go to support.bniconnect.com, support.bniconnect.com. And when you go there, you won't be able to see the protected content, but you'll be able to see all of this chapter training and documentation. You'll also be able to see all of the public forums. Carol says the Facebook address, it's a BNI Connect Global. So facebook.com/BNI Connect Global. Facebook.com, BNI Connect Global. All right, what are the questions? Questions. Will the goals be automatically updated to total chapter? So when you're entering the goals, you need to enter in the total. What you're choosing to do is it will not auto-update them. So whatever numbers are here, what you're saying by the whole chapter per member is what it will do for the results later on. But you need to do the calculation yourself if you're putting them in as a whole chapter. If you put them in as per member, again, you need to put them in as per member monthly goals, and it will show the appropriate calculation when I go back to, I want to make sure I don't save that, but when I go back to the view goals, it will display them in per member format. And yes, individual member goals work the same way. Again, individual members aren't going to put in their own individual goals. This is just still a tool for the leadership team, and will display how they, basically it's just really a mind thing. How do you think better? Do you think in a per member goal or a per chapter goal? One thing to keep in mind with the per member goals is that when you do the calculations and when it displays the results in the report, the results and your, how much you've obtained will depend on the input size of the chapter, not what your actual chapter count is. So your goal membership count. Does that make sense, Bobby? Does that help? And changing from individual to chapter does not recalculate anything. So if you do change at some point from individual goals to chapter goals, then you do have to manually go back and update those various goals. All right, I think that was the last question I have. Are there any additional questions? I'd love to answer those. Paul, The numbers will actually display larger per chapter. They would be smaller on a per member basis. Amy asks, when will BNI Connect become available in Illinois, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, Maryland, Northern Virginia? You guys will be able to log in sometime in April. I do not have an exact date for that. It will be, again, depending on the testing and the rollout, but sometime in April, you should be able to follow up with your executive director to get more information about exact timing of that. So, Paul, if you want to work with that offline, we can take a look at specific examples within BNI Connect of those. So if anybody has additional questions, feel free to send us an email, support@bniconnect.com, support@bniconnect.com, and we can have a look at specific examples. Okay, awesome. All right. Well, I'd like to thank everybody for being here today. A good referral for me is to please let your other chapter members, let your friends, let your leadership teams, let your director consultants know about these webinars. Our very next webinar, and I believe our last webinar for this month, is going to be on Thursday, February 26th, so 2 days from now, Thursday, at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. We're going to be talking about leadership team tools and reports. So all the different things that leadership teams can do in BNI Connect, like entering POMS reports and entering speaker rotations and all that fun stuff, and some of the reports that are available to look at statistics. So hopefully I'll see some of you on Thursday, and if not, have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for being here, and happy connecting.